The Sharks are back in an all-new season of Shark Tank, where public sector entrepreneurs from across the state dream of a chance to change how IT and business departments work together and improve how government functions. If the Sharks hear a great idea, they're ready to invest using their department's time, money, and resources. Who are the Sharks? They're successful California state agency leaders spanning both business and IT, who have decades of combined experience with how to get things done in government. Liana Bailey-Crimmins, CIO at CalPERS and the 2014 CIO of the Year, has over 25 years of public sector experience and has built an ITSB legacy through awe-inspiring leadership. Russ Nichols, IT Director and Agency CIO at the California Department of Corrections, is a force to be reckoned with in leading the Strategic Offender Management System project, which revolutionized IT and business operations with a single statewide solution. Stacy Lopez, an Associate Director at CDCR, well known as a go-getter with a phenomenal 23-year run in public service, drives the selection process and training academy for correctional officers across the state. Dr. Hisham Rana, Special Assistant, MIS at DHCS, known as a thought leader in a space where technology and the traditional art of medicine intertwine, is currently driving many cutting-edge initiatives as the department proceeds with one of the largest IT projects in the state's history. And who can forget Mr. Wonderful, an all-around expert in every walk of life, is making a special guest appearance on today's episode of The Shark Tank.
Good morning. My name is Christie Borchin. I'm the Deputy Director at the Department of Technology, Office of Professional Development. As part of my duties, I'm the Program Director for the IT Leadership Academy. Today, I brought two entrepreneurs from our class to present our product. Mind you, we're not talking about the ever-popular Gobi H2O self-filtering water bottle, and nor are we presenting information about the scrub daddies that are so popular in the consumer market. Rather, we're talking about something departments can prepare for: business process reengineering in order for them to visualize their current business process. Last year, ITLA 21 created a product readiness packet that includes a BPM quick start guide. We also have a BPM deep dive guide that really delves into the subject. So with me today is Mr. David Dirks from the Employment Development Department, and Ms. Catherine Lanzaro, and she is from Department of Child Support Services. Catherine's on the mound, and she's ready to make her first pitch. Catherine?
Thank you so much, Christy. Sharks, we are here to tell you that the BPM guide is your way to the future. I was part of the team with ITLA 21 that developed the BPM guide and the deeper dive guide. And just to level set us, Sharks, BPM is a methodology used to document your current business processes. It's done in a way that you can have a visual illustration of those processes. There's 3 key features in the guide: easy to use, and easy to use. Seriously, who's talked about the topic of BPM? It can be overwhelming, but our guide makes it very simple and easy to get through. It has role-based, it's role-based, and it allows you to focus on BPM, and it also is an easy read. It shows you how to start small, but make a big return on investment. Hey, speaking of investment, Christy, how's that house remodel going?
Actually, Catherine, thanks for asking. It's going great. So think of it this way, Sharks. You have a 30-year-old house like I do. You want to make some improvements. You want more space. You want modernized appliances, and you want some features to create efficiencies for water and electricity. So you have two choices. You can either buy another house, or you can remodel the one you have. Well, you're gonna remodel, so you've got the land, you own the house, so you decided to add on. In order to add on appropriately and correctly, you need a set of blueprints, e.g. your as-is. You need to know where your plumbing is. You need to know where your electrical is. You need to know where your load balancing walls are.
Wait a second, you lost me there. Load-bearing walls.
Well, that's the foundation of the house. If you don't know where your load-bearing walls are and you start construction, your house could come tumbling down.
Oh, okay, I'm getting it now. It's pretty much like how the government, state government, has 30-plus-year-old systems and no documentation. Who has experienced that out there? Just about everybody in the audience. Sharks, did you catch that? Everybody has experienced that. We're here to convince you today that BPM is vital to do, not sometime later, but right now, today. You must know your as-is business processes. And it's vital because you're not able to improve what you don't know. I'm not talking about what you think is happening out there in your organization or what you think should happen in your organization. I'm talking about what really does happen. You've got to get that written down. You see, without uncovering all of these as-is, undocumented processes, you're pretty much stuck with inefficient systems and processes out there and lots of undocumented workarounds. Am I right?
Yes, Catherine, you absolutely are right. So we've given you an introduction into BPM, business process modeling. We've given you a copy of our quick start guide. What we really want to know is, what is it going to take for us to have a deal with our leaders within the IT business of the state of California?
Well, before we get started, I just wanted to make an announcement that one of my recent investments in a hair growth company has paid off. As you can tell, it's a miracle. It's tripled my net worth, proving once again that I am Mr. Wonderful. Thank you. Having said that, I've heard about BPM for years. It doesn't work. I'm out.
So Mr. Wonderful has a point. BPM. We do it in our organization. We do it fairly successfully. But it's hard to communicate to our business folks why they need to invest in that, why they need to participate and be a part of that process. In fact, if I say I've been there and done that, they're going to say the same thing to me if I talk to them. When I go in and ask for their best and their brightest, the people that are core to operating that organization, to come in and document what they do today, they look at me crosswise. They want to document what they're going to do tomorrow. They know what they do today. They live it and they feel it. People away from modernizing their business just feels like a boat anchor to them. How do you deal with that?
Great question. The driver for as is, everybody wants to talk about where we're going, how we're going to get there. It's kind of like putting into Google Maps. Here's where I want to go. The first thing the application asks is, where are you? Where do we start? Without the documents that define where we are today, you can't really define how we're going to improve those processes, how we're going to provide more value to our customers and our programs. The other thing is, how many people here are going to retire in the next 5 years? Okay? More hands than we want to see in the state of California, because a lot of our IT experience is walking out the door. Business process modeling is one of those ways that we can capture that information before they leave. Then, once you have your as-is, then you can start looking at where do we want to go, how do we get there, based on valid, current information.
But I'm with Russ. I mean, it's hard to sell BPM to departments who are really spread thin when it comes to resources. I've seen BPM be successful. In fact, I was an executive sponsor for a healthcare scheduling and tracking solution. The first thing we did was we documented the processes for mental health, dental, and medical. And what we found was it was vital that because we wanted to make sure that the business was thought in mind. I realized as we were going through this that I look at this and say, gosh, I would cringe if we hadn't done it. So think about it. IT's put in a room and said, we need to document all these processes for dental. And I don't know if you know this, but dental actually cares and schedules 32 teeth. Mental health, they care about group sessions. So what they do is they actually schedule multiple patients. And then medical is looking at it from a very different viewpoint, from a primary care or specialty care. So it sounds like Mission Impossible, right? But one of the things we found is when we documented it all and put it on paper, that business was actually able to find redundancies, they were able to streamline, and they were able to do all that on paper before we ever put our fingers to code. So what I found is, in my career, is that it can be successful in 3 areas. One is developers can actually graphically see it and know what they're going to code. 2 is decision makers in business can actually see it graphically and again be able to streamline if necessary. And project managers can actually see how everything fits together. So I'll tell you, Dave, Catherine, and Christie, I hear you, but I'm going to need to know more if I'm going to be able to be completely invested in this.
Well, I think BPM is mission impossible, so I'm still out.
You're always out. And I don't know if you really have 32 teeth, Mr.
Yeah, they're gold. They're 32 gold teeth.
So it can be challenging getting the business involved in the BPM process. Does your guide explain what participation is required from the business and how to kick off the process?
Absolutely, Dr. Rana. The business input is critical to BPM, and our guide talks about that. You have to have business subject matter experts, or business SMEs. You have to get the knowledge out of their head and onto those visual illustrations. They are the key to success. They are the people in your organization that have rolled up their sleeves. They've been doing the work for years. They know exactly what is going on with those processes and what's happening in your organization. Basically, they're the experts. They are the most vital key to BPM success. Our Quick Start Guide also explains some of the responsibilities that a business SME would have, such as providing those real-world examples and making sure that what you document is accurate.
So Catherine, I agree with you. It's critical to have subject matter experts involved in this process. BPM cannot succeed without it. And so one of the things that corrections is currently involved in, we are working with Delegata on looking at business processes for our peace officer selection process. In 2013, we were tasked with recruiting for over 7,000 correctional officers statewide. And we didn't have time to look at the old processes that we had used prior years. And so it was critical that we just get going and start hiring some folks. And now after almost 2 years in this process, we're working collaboratively with Delegata, getting the people involved within corrections to work and look through how we can improve on business processes. Not saying that we need to make changes in all areas because the selection process is very cumbersome, but looking at where we can improve efficiencies and not necessarily get rid of someone's job per se, because that's the first thing that people think when some outside organization comes in to look at your processes, is what's going to happen to me? Is this going to put me out of a job? No, it's not going to put them out of a job. It's going to help them do their job more efficiently. And so getting the team, and specifically right now the corrections team, and involved with Delegata working on these processes and making sure they understand what is in it for them and how they can improve this and improve their job is critical to the success. So with that said, how do we, once Delegata leaves us, how does the guide help us in moving forward and keeping this momentum going and ensuring that all of the team members at corrections will successfully carry it forward and train others? And we have people leaving the office. How does will the guide help us? And I know there's knowledge base that will be transferred over, but tell me how that can help me as a business leader within corrections in continuing that momentum within the Office of Peace Officer Selection.
Our guide definitely talks about that. And Sharks, you're going to see that BPM is the way to go. So what it is that you need to make sure when you first start it, and I think you talked about it a little bit, that when you first start doing BPM, you get those business experts to the table and they see how valuable they are. And you make sure that throughout the BPM process, they know that they are valuable. You keep asking them the hard questions. Keep at them to make sure that they reveal everything that they know. Throughout that process, they will see that sometimes they'll get a little bit of a fear that maybe their job is going to go away. But you have to address that right up front with change management and explain to them that although the current job they're doing today might change, their job's not going away. In fact, what is noticed is most people feel that the things that they hated about their job, the redundant processes and the repeat with their coworker actually goes away. So what they find is more efficient processes, they feel even more valuable, and it's really about continuous improvement. Right, Dave?
Absolutely, continuous improvement. BPM is the first and hardest step. But once you get through that first piece, step 1, step 2, step 3, those SMEs have the opportunity to go back after that and do it again, based on the business needs, based on your organization and what you're trying to accomplish. Start small. If you try to do a level 6 BPM, you're probably going to fail if it's the first time that you've done that. So starting small, repeating that process, that provides value to that SME. They're going, wow, I am important. They do want to hear me, and most of the people want to be heard.
And also, Stacy, I wanted to let you know that I'm sure as part of your contract with Delegata that you have a knowledge transfer portion. So that is vital, obviously, to any contracts. But also, it needs to be incorporated as the culture of your organization in terms of business process modeling. So keep that in mind as well.
I agree, thank you.
I have a question for you. Shouldn't BPM be smashed like a cockroach that it is?
Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Wonderful. Somehow I thought you would have something like that. And actually, as you speak about cockroaches, I'm thinking, don't cockroaches live without their heads after they're smashed for like 7 days or something like that? That's pretty much what you're going to experience in your organization, that same kind of chaos, running around with your head cut off. That's going to be chaos in your organization.
Honestly, Mr. Wonderful, how can you not see the value in this process? Basically, we've got states, all of our expertise is leaving. We definitely need to capture that information on paper visually so that we can know where our processes start. We also hear constantly, and this crowd will vouch for this, you got to do more with less. That's real easy to say, very difficult to do. One of the best things about BPM is you get to define where you are, and then you can look at that to figure out where I can make efficiencies in time so that I have more time to do other things. Our guide basically narrows it down to 6 steps of how to introduce BPM into your organization. It's a quick read. You guys can pick these up today, and you can start today with business process modeling. The first step is to define what process you want to define. Don't start with your most difficult one. Thank you. Don't start with your most difficult one. Start with one that you think you can accomplish, especially if you're not a very mature organization for business process modeling. The second and most important is that define your roles. There are 4 key roles listed in the manual. We're going to keep that a secret. Take a look at it. You'll figure what they are. But the most important is the executive leadership. It has to be sponsored. It has to be on the leader's objective to get this done and to staff it and provide support as needed to be successful. The third step is where you talk and figure out who your SME is. Who is that key person that knows that process as well as anybody else, so that you can sit down with them and go through step 4, which is to define all the people that need to be involved. Some complex processes might take 30 people, 100 people. Your SME should help you define who that list is. The 5th step is the meat and potatoes. That's where you actually document the business process. Yeah, there's a lot of formal ways to do that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as everybody understands what that model is. The 6th step is where you analyze the results, get executive buy-off that, hey, we accomplished what we had set out to accomplish, and then you have something that you can use to make decisions going forward. Christie, everybody here, including the Sharks, are going, wow, how do we make time for this? I know that you've done some great work. How have you guys done this in your organization?
Well, I can answer that. This is going to sound very simple, but we do BPM Fridays in the mornings at the end of the week. Sometimes we add breakfast in, so it's just not so boring. I mean, let's face it, this is not something that's very exciting to do. And it's hard. People will actually argue during these process illustrations and getting all this information out. People will argue. So breakfast, you throw breakfast in and it kind of calms everybody. And then the coffee kicks in and we really get some things done. And it sounds like a simple, kind of silly way to do it, but we've noticed that since we've implemented BPM Fridays, that it doesn't really have any kind of negative effect on our workload. We're still getting just as much work done. We just take those Friday mornings and carve that out to do BPM.
You actually do BPM Fridays?
We do.
Stop the madness. I'm still out.
I'm starting to feel like Mr. Wonderful. I'm still not convinced. I can't believe I'm even saying that. But focusing on aligning an organization with the wants and needs of internal clients in a government entity sounds like an invitation for vocal people to throw stones and lay blame for years of grievances, either real or imagined. How exactly does that promote efficiency and effectiveness when I'm opening the door for nothing but trouble?
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you. We actually were considering BPM at our organization, so I reached out to colleagues across the state, and I asked them, where did you get in trouble, and it's a tough process, but where did you get in trouble? And repeatedly I kept hearing that it was the interview portion. What happened during the interview portion was that rather than modeling the as-is process, it turned into almost a therapy session. And maybe I know a thing or two about therapy sessions because I deliver them, but I didn't want to engage in that in my organization. So what really happened was, and I think the feedback we got was that over years and years and years, these SMEs filled in for roles that weren't originally what they were defined as. So the process became more and more muddied as years went on. And when the door was opened with open-ended questions, it turned into a free-for-all. And so the feedback that I got from my colleagues or counterparts was that they had to go back and really focus on asking the right questions and only spending as much time as needed on the as-is process. And the other thing that we heard back was that we have to implement a continuous improvement process. Keep going back to your business SMEs and keep asking them what has happened since the last time we talked. Does your guide speak to that at all, or those practical experiences?
It does, Dr. Rana, and it actually sounds like you have a lot of experience of knowing when to stop modeling. Has anyone experienced that where you get just so deep in the modeling you just really become lost in what you're doing? That's happened before. The key with modeling is to know when to stop. When is it too much detail? And really the trick there is to get your as-is process documented and get the general workflow documented, and then stop and move on to the next process.
Absolutely. And another piece that the guide, we are selling this, we're hoping to get a deal today. A couple of areas that it covers in that space also, absolutely the continuous process improvement matters, asking the right questions, but we also need to understand the maturity of the organizations. If you're trying to do a level 1 to 6, 6 being we're very mature, we've done a lot of business process modeling, but you're trying to do it in a level 1 organization, you're probably going to be disappointed. That's a big problem within the BPM space. Wow, and I'm guilty of it myself. Let's do it, let's get every little bit and piece, and by the time I get through a quarter of it, I've lost my audience, nobody cares anymore, they don't see any value, etc. The second piece is setting the appropriate expectations. Within the guide, we have the different levels of business process modeling. We've defined those 1 through 4. Start small, start with 1. Get through the process first. That way we can demonstrate the value to the people that are doing the work. Wow, here's the 5 major steps that you've done. This one is the one that you don't like the most. It takes too much time, there's too much rework. Let's focus on that one and break it out a little farther so that we can demonstrate the value to the SMEs and the people actually doing the work.
You know why people call me Mr. Wonderful? It's
No.
because I make money. And I'm not hearing money here. You're dead to me. I'm out.
I have to say Mr. Wonderful does have something to say here that is kind of relevant. If we're going to go back to our departments, we really need to see ROI. This can't be just an additional cost to the organization without showing return on investment.
You're right, Liana, but our guide, of course, talks about how you know you're getting results so you get that return on investment. There's things like your leadership team is reporting improvements and more streamlined approach in their business processes. Customer satisfaction has increased and response time has decreased. Strategic goals are being met. Staff really are getting done more with less. Your organization has the time to address and resolve long-standing issues that have been in your department, really causing those pain points for your employees. And other leaders are asking for your BPM secrets, your success secrets. You could share.
So let me see if I can put all this together. When you're doing BPM, you're capturing that business process model. And as Liana said, we're trying to reflect return on investment to an organization. That might be cash, but that might be better processes and improved processes. So with the information you've provided in your guide, we can map those things out and find inefficiencies and steps that don't need to be there. We can make things better in the short term, but we're still asking our executives to make a commitment in the process, an investment. And one of the challenges that we have as executives is to show how that really helps. I can improve a process, but at the end of the day, as an IT organization, as a service delivery organization and a partner in the organization, we need to show a big return on investment. So one of the things that we've been able to do is show over time that we can reduce time to deliver things. In other words, because we know what we're doing, the business side of what we're doing, when we have a problem, it gives us a place to start. We can go in and figure out if something's askew, if something's not working right, why the process exists in the first place, to make some adjustments. But it's still a tough thing to do. You're asking for an initial investment. And Dave, one of the things you said I think is key, start small. If you're asking people to invest in biting off the entire elephant at once, you're taking on way too much. Start with a small process, something where you can show an improved process and an immediate return, and track those things. Get a little bigger, get a little better. And as you build that confidence, your executives then will invest in the process as it goes forward. And when I deal with folks like Stacy in the line of business, now they come to me and they say, I'm willing to provide people because I see that it adds value. It reduces those times, it gets me better solutions. So I think the information guide is good at that. I think the detailed guide is good at that, but you've got a little more work to do to convince us.
Excuse me, you know me, I think nobody has a monopoly on good ideas, and frankly, I'm really tired of hearing these sharks talk all day and go so easy on the entrepreneurs. So does anyone out in the audience, is there someone here that can ask a tough question to the entrepreneurs?
Here's one.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. Your question is, what is the most difficult part about recruiting and retaining process modelers? That is a great question.
Good question.
Yes, good question. The guide talks about the role of the process modeler, and most people approach it and think that it's some kind of master engineer or some rocket science that's been going on. It's not. If your organization is at a low maturity level, you could actually do this on paper and draw it out. You can get all the way to very complicated BPM tools. You could use Visio. It's really not that hard to find someone that can model your processes. The things you're looking for in a modeler are people who are going to be a facilitator. They're a writer. Can they understand what someone is trying to say to them, document it down on paper, and then gain consensus? Because we talked a lot about how BPM is hard and people will argue. So you're going to need that person to see through all of those weeds and all those arguments, get it written down. And it really comes down to soft skills, someone that is a leader, someone that can do that communication and has that good written skills.
So you're telling us that we all need to be counselors like Dr. Rana in order to make this work?
Thank you.
I hope not.
So one of the things that I think addresses that is a nature of curiosity. You have to have someone willing to ask the questions and to push the envelope. So in your guidebooks and in your tools, do you provide training? Do you provide other instances of examples?
Absolutely. We have our Quick Start Guide, which really is Quick Start. It's a quick read, okay? Easy to read. We basically went out and did a POC with this and rewrote it completely with feedback that we got from people like you. And the focus is on, I'm an executive, I have a page that tells me what I need to know, what my responsibilities are, and what I can do. The other is, we have an academic guide. Some of the folks in ITLA 21 really liked putting this thing together, 60-some pages. It's a lot of information, but the Quick Start Guide points back to this so that, hey, I need to look at page 30 to learn more about this detail. We also may have some opportunities for training with the OTech, CalTech side of the house, but we're not quite sure about that yet. Any other questions in the audience? The entire BPM process addresses that, whether it's out. Oh, I'm sorry. What if you don't have everything documented? You don't know the information. You've lost that technical resource that knows what is actually happening down there. You may have step A that says we're doing this and the people doing the work are doing something different. Is that about to say it? Denise, was it? Okay. That's what BPM's all about. If you don't capture that up front, you lose all of that, and then you have to figure it out, and it's twice as much work, very difficult. BPM is not sexy, okay? It's a very difficult process, but that's a very good reason why people should do that, is to capture all that information up front before it's gone. Again, you can't really do anything unless you know where you are today. You can't make improvements, you can't make it better for our customers, we can't save time and money unless you know where you are today.
Russ, you and I have been down this road before. We had a joint effort. It was CDCR, time and shift. We had a year to document and automate processes. What do you think would have happened if we wouldn't have documented the as-is?
Wow. So let me give a little background here. Department of Corrections is a relatively large department. We have about 60,000 employees. We operate 35 prisons up and down the state. We also have other lines of business, but I'll just drill down on the prisons a little bit. Within those prisons, it's like running a small city. We provide hotel facilities. We do catering or food management. We provide public transportation, educational programs, and we have industries where we make furniture. We have a dairy. We do all kinds of things in prison. Well, in staffing those prisons, it's a 24/7 operation. And what Liana's referring to is a lot of those businesses require people on a post. You have to be there in order to run that line of business. If you put it in the context of an airline flight, you're not going to get on an airplane and travel if it doesn't have a pilot and a flight crew. The airplane's grounded. We do the same thing in the prisons. If we don't have a custody officer in a housing unit, we can't operate the housing unit. Well, part of our solution that we had to come up with is how we make sure those things are always staffed. And to complicate things, we're talking actually about two separate organizations. One physical location, but we have multiple business entities in that physical location. We have Department of Corrections staff. We have California Correctional Health Care staff, two separate organizations. We also have DHS and a number of other folks in there. But if we focus on CCHCS and CDCR staff, we had to come up with a business process for making sure people were in the right place at the right time to operate that organization. We mapped that out. We did the business process of how do I staff a facility that covered both organizations. And I'll tell you, you're not always going to get this right. And going back to the example of knowing where to stop, sometimes you stop too soon. In this particular example, we stopped a little bit too soon. There are rules about how you determine who will staff that site. So we have mandatory overtime, mandatory callback, and you have that when you sign up for that job. That's actually in the labor agreements. What we missed the first time was the rules are different between custody staff and nursing staff. And so we get into a process and we're trying to staff those positions, and now we've got a problem because the system is not working. The solution, not just the technology, the business process is not working the way folks expect it to. But we're able to solve that quickly because we have the entire business process mapped out. We can dive into that and figure out where we went off. Now we put a new branch in that, capture those business rules that deal differently with the custody officers versus the nursing staff, and we can fix that without having to start at ground zero or having people come in, throw their hands up and say the entire thing is a failure. We can fix just the flaw. We couldn't have done that without the BPM outcome that we had developed in the first place.
Now, Russ, I know we've all used BPM and we have our own methodologies and our own framework, but do you think this guide would have actually made it any better for you? I mean, for us to invest in it, it's got to be better than what we have, right?
I think we did a good job. We didn't call it BPM, but we overall did a good job. The thing about the guide is if we get as a state to a point that we can replicate these processes, we have built a better organization for the constituents of California. If I can move from department to department, if I can bring in folks that know this, and frankly, if I'm topped out and I can go to Dr. Rana or to Liana and say, I need some assistance, they can loan me somebody that speaks the same language, that processes things in the same way. Having that standard behind us, the training behind us to make that successful will make this work much, much better for the state as a whole.
You know, I'm just about done with this kumbaya. Are we ready to make an offer? And anyone here want to make an offer?
Well, you can see that I value the process. I'm a little bit hesitant, so I'm willing to make you an offer. But in order for me to do that, what I need you guys to do is step up and provide your quick start guide to everybody that's in the audience here today.
We can do that, yes.
Thank you for your offer. Like that. Can we hear from some other sharks?
Well, I think Russ is too easy on you. I agree. I think providing the audience, the guide is great. But I think you need to throw in a training option as well.
Well, you know, we're talking to the right people here. We'll offer you a full-day BPM session taught by the IDLA 21 team at a very reasonable price, right around $100. So to find that, just go to cio.ca.gov, and we'll get that going in the next quarter.
Also, what we'll do is we'll throw in our deep dive guide as an added bonus. And you can go to the same website and search on ITLA 21 and download the guide.
Well, I hate to say this, you've actually convinced me, but you know, I do like to have fun, I do like to have a good time, and BPM just doesn't sound like it's a whole lot of fun. Do you have anything that you can throw in to make the process more enjoyable so I don't have to drink my $10,000 bottle of Sauvignon Blanc?
Since you brought it up, we have our little stress shark that we will throw into the deal just for you and for everybody in the audience.
So, this sounds pretty good. Is
Okay.
everyone?
So we've discussed this as a team, and we have a deal.
Great,
And,
we're in.
and we're in.
We're in.
Go down that way so we can shake hands.
Thank you. Great. You'll love
So
the guide.
everybody on your way out,
Thank you.
we have the
Nice job.
stress shark. We've got the quick start guide and the academic guide. In the back there in the corner, people are waving at you. On your way out, if you can pick that up, that'd be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.